Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to try to get to know the Ampero Stomp in terms of how it does parallel processing and how it handles stereo signal paths and things like that. And the goal being, to create a good preset that's maybe using dual amps in parallel and try to get that to sound good. But let's start off by just kind of trying to get to know how it handles parallel signal paths and stereo paths and things like that. So one of the things I will say is that we're going to be dealing with stereo signals here and the differences in how you do the signal path. So if you're listening to this, best to listen with headphones or through some kind of monitors that'll give you that stereo spread, because otherwise you won't be able to hear the differences. So let's start off. We've got a preset here. It's empty. We're going to add in an amp and a cab to start off with. So I've been liking the Brown King Clean quite a bit lately. Set the volume to 45, bass on 45. I usually put the mids on halfway at 50 and then a little more treble, maybe 55. And then we'll add in a cab. I've been liking the Tang 2x12B. Move the mic position to the cone, and we'll turn on a high cut. We'll put it somewhere down around 5,000, but we won't worry about getting too exact here. That'll work. So let's hear what our amp sounds like on its own. So whenever I'm trying to learn about a new device like this and learn how it deals with stereo signals, one of my favorite things to do is to put a ping pong delay. And the reason I like the ping pong delay is it allows me, as I'm playing around with, here, we'll move the mix up a little bit so we can hear it. When I'm playing around the signal path, a ping pong delay is supposed to bounce the delay from left to right and back and forth. And it's a really easy way for you to hear how your device is handling that kind of left to right ping pong. So here's the delay. I've got it after the amp and cab right now. So you hear there's a delay going left to right, left to right. So we know we've got our stereo signal there. So if we move the delay in front of the amp, what I'm expecting to happen is, and this is kind of how something like the Quad Cortex works, is I would expect that the amp being a mono node, I think is what Ampero calls them, that it will take the stereo signal and force it back to mono. And so what we should hear is, instead of delays going left, right, we should hear them all in the center. So let's check that out. And it's doing kind of what we expect, but one of the things I found with the Ampero that's unique, I think, to it, is that these mono nodes only take the left output of the stereo signal. So let's put up a simple graphic here to help walk through this. So what you can see here is you've got your input coming in, and it's coming in as mono. So we're coming in just on the left mono. And then the stereo signal is going into delay, and delay's got a left-right output, but the amp only has a mono signal. What you would expect is, or what I expected is, that typically then the left-right from the stereo are just fed evenly into the mono input of the mono node. But that's not what the Ampero Stomp does. What it does is that mono node only takes the left. And so what you're hearing with the delay, you'll notice we're only getting half the delays. That ping pong delay that's in the right channel is getting dropped. So not only are we losing the stereo signal, we're losing one of the delays. We're only getting that. We're only getting the delay that was in the left channel. The delay that was in the right channel is just disappeared, is gone. And so the cab will do the same thing. So if I move this block, switch with the amp, you'll hear the same thing. The amp is eating that delay as well. It's only when we move this after to the cab that we get our left-right back. Not only is it left-right, but we're getting that right delay. So for me, coming from the Quad Cortex, this was unexpected behavior because it is not forcing the stereo path back into mono, it's just dropping half the stereo path and only using the left. And so from here, what I wanted to do was, well, can we get that right delay back if we split into parallel processing and run 2 amps? So in the real world, you'd have a stereo device in front of your amps. Say, this is a ping pong delay. This could apply the same if you were running a stereo chorus, where you might put your guitar into the chorus and take the stereo output from the chorus and send it one to each amp. So you're getting that kind of stereo spread from the amps. So let's try running in parallel. So let's change our view here. We could do a split and a mix. I'm going to do a Y to AB. So we're splitting and then running 2 different outputs. So we're going to take the splitter and we're going to move it after the delay. We're going to take the amp, we'll long press, we're going to copy it, we're going to long press here, and we're going to paste it. So we're just going to copy our amp and cab. So you can hear we're getting the same result, even though we've got 2 amps now running in parallel. So my initial thought was that comes down to the mode of the splitter. And honestly, I find the documentation around the Stomp 2, it's not very clear on what the difference is between the modes. There's 2 modes, modes 1 and modes 2. Mode 1, I kind of expected. It's just splitting the signal, the full signal as is, to the 2 paths. And it would make sense then that we would continue to see the same results, because what you're basically doing is you have both left-right coming out of the delay going to both amps, and both amps are only taking the left channel of that. And that's why you're getting that same result. The delay's down the center, and you're only getting the left delay, the right delay is getting dropped. My hope was that if you move to mode 2, my expectation was that mode 2 might split the left and right signal paths along the 2 paths of the preset. And what I'm finding is it's not doing that. We're still losing that right delay. Been continuing to look into this and trying to figure out how can we get that stereo back if we're putting the stereo effect in front of the amps. And so far, I've not been able to find a way to do this, even with all the different options in terms of the split and mix and things like that. It just seems like whenever you run this signal through one of these mono nodes, it's dropping the right channel. And that's just how it works. The only thing I can say for right now is don't use stereo nodes except at the back end of your preset. So make sure your presets are set up to go mono to stereo. You can't use a stereo effect in the front and then run it into multiple amps like you would in the real world. I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, there is a little bit of a difference of running these effects into the front of the amp versus after the amp, especially with something like a chorus or something like that. But it's not a huge deal. It still can sound good. So keep this in mind, because as far as I know, this is how stereo processing on the Ampero 2 works. I'll continue to play around with it. If I figure it out, I'll do another video that shows the solution. But for right now, everything that I've been able to read and even participate in some of the Facebook groups of Ampero 2 owners and things like that, I have not found a solution that allows you to put the stereo effect in front of the amp, even if you're running parallel amps, and maintain that stereo effect. So let's move on to something a little more fun. Rather than talking about what it can't do, let's talk about what it can do. So I'm actually going to move now to this patch that I created. And so I want to walk through this because I'm really happy with this preset. I'm running stereo amps here with some drives up front, some effects on the back end, and I'm really liking the different sounds. And I'll make this preset available in my Dropbox folder for you to grab if you want. So let's walk through this preset. The general path here is I've got a couple drive pedals up front. I'm splitting and I'm running parallel amps. One is a Marshall Plexi Super Lead, and the other is a Brown King Clean that we were just using. And we'll go through the settings on those. And then I've got it going into an analog delay and a reverb. And then I have a chorus on the Brown King path only. And I'm really liking the combination of these 2 amps. So here's what it sounds like. So I like this amp combination a lot. It's very similar to something I'd done on the Quad Cortex where I was combining a Plexi with a Mesa Boogie Lone Star. This is the same kind of thing where you're taking, that super lead sound. So I don't have a lot of gain on the Marshall here. Let's turn off the Brown King so we can hear the super lead on its own. So I don't have a lot of drive on this. Everything's pretty much at halfway. I did roll a little bit of treble back. And so this just gives you a little bit of that kind of Marshall bite, but not overdoing it. If we turn that off, and we go to the Brown King. So this one, again, I got volume in half, output 50, rolled the bass back a little bit, and then I'm rolling up the mid and the treble a little bit. So this is just kind of a nice Fender-y. And when you combine those together, you kind of get that bite of the Marshall with the warm clean of the Brown King, and I really like the combination. And then for delay, again, I've got a stereo analog delay. I've got the time at about 400 milliseconds. Mix is pretty low, feedback's pretty low, so not tons of delay here. And the reverb, I'm using the cloud delay. I pulled the decay back to 25 and the mix is at 20 and really haven't changed any of the other settings. So it's not a lot of ambience. All right, and then on the front, I've got two drives here. I've got a Prince of Drive with just a little bit of gain, and the tone's pushed a little bit, the volume's at 50. So when we turn that on, it's kind of giving a nice round, warm gain. Not a lot of gain, but just kind of warming it up. So without it, when we add it in, so not a huge change, it just kind of thickens it up a little bit. Maybe gives a little more low end, even though we're pushing the tone. It's just something about this drive is pushing the low end of the amps a little bit more. And then the second drive I have is a super drive. Again, the gain's not super high. I got it at 35. I've rolled the tone back on this one. The volume's pretty low. But when we kick that in, just kind of a nice thick crunch. And the thing I really like is you can combine these together for a nice kind of singing lead. So I really like the way those sound on their own, but I also like when you combine them, it kind of gives you that nice kind of full lead tone. And then the last thing I have is we've got this 3D chorus. I've got the mix pretty high only because it's only on one of the paths. So the Plexi stays clean and you get a chorus on that kind of warm Fender-y kind of sound. And I've got the depth on left and right full, but the center one I've got down. So I'm just trying to give kind of this full chorusy sound, and I just really liked how this sounded. So if we turn that on, you get that dry path from the Plexi, but you're getting the mix with the chorus. And I like how it sounds. And even if you push in all the drive, I mean, it's not subtle, and to me it actually sounds a little Rush-ish, kind of Alex Lifeson a little bit, with kind of, you could hear it using that sound for kind of And so I think the course works well whether you're just using the clean or whether, again, if you're kicking in the drive or even the full lead. So I'm really happy with this dual preset. My concerns about how the device handles stereo signals aside, it does have a lot of really good sounding effects and amps in here, and you can run them in parallel, mix them together, and I like the combinations. There's a lot to play around with here, and it's really working well. It's not handling this stereo paths as I would expect. And so it's once you kind of get to understand it, it kind of tells you what you can and can't do. But like I said, I'll make this preset available in the Dropbox folder I've set up for these Ampero 2 Stomp presets. The link will be in the description. Let me know if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover on the Ampero 2 Stomp, anything that you have questions about. I'm happy to do another video. And I hope you found this one helpful, and thanks for watching.